Hello and welcome to another episode of EdTransformed. EdTransformed is brought to you by School of the Future International Academy, in short, SOFIA. SOFIA is a non-profit, non-governmental organization which supports educational institutions, school leaders and educators in their effort to improve their knowledge and skills. This way, we contribute to the creation of equal opportunities for every student in the world. Today, we are honored to have here with us Kiran Sethi, a true education reformer who, with the background of a designer, built a school where students are nurtured with the belief that they can, and I find it fascinating. They can achieve academic goals, they can offer to their community, they can dream big. Riverside, that turns 25 this year, is an inspirational school that has been receiving awards for their innovative way of teaching and operating. So without further ado, Kiran, welcome to EdTransformed.
Thank you so much, Asasa. This is finally, after many hiccups, we are here online together. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you for accepting it. First of all, I would like you to share with the audience the story of how you embarked on establishing the school and the Design for Change methodology almost 25 years ago now.
My God, it sounds so long back. But yes, as you mentioned, I'm actually a designer by education. And I had started my own design firm when I graduated and pretty much had no plans of changing the world or, being what is called an educationist. But I think, life has other plans for you. And so when I became a mother, my whole world changed. I saw firsthand, a system of education that rewards compliance. If children are good and keep quiet, well, they will be rewarded. And for me, I saw that my son slowly getting diminished, his power, his energy, his whole voice in less than 3 months. And I thought to myself, this can't be it. I can't have my son go through 15 years of an education being told to keep quiet, to listen, to be compliant. So I think at that time, I didn't think very much, but I remember taking him out of school and saying, there must be another way to educate our children. And pretty much I started the school in my home 25 years ago, not really wanting to change education, but to really understand how children learn. So I think for me, there was no overwhelming burden on my shoulders to say, oh my God, I'm changing education. It wasn't that big or that enormous. It was just a story of a mother who said, there must be a different way for my child to learn. And that really became the genesis of the story of Riverside. So I think 25 years ago, it was really a story of a mother using design in education. So if you really look at the trajectory, it isn't an educationist at all. I didn't come from an education in education. So I thought that was so wonderfully freeing. I didn't know what rules I was breaking. I could ask all the questions that had to be asked. I could say why not and what if. And I feel that liberation was so important to embark on this story. So really, Riverside became an act of a mother's need using design in education. So yes, that really was the start. And how did the Design for Change methodology come? And really, I think it was to simplify what I learned in a college, right? So I went to college to train me to become a professional in design. And the design process is taught to us as a way to think about solutions. And when you learn it in a college level, it is slightly more complex. You have to learn the jargon of design. And often the understanding is that people will graduate from a design college and set up design firms. But I took the reverse and said, how does a child understand design? So I think Design for Change offered me the opportunity to simplify the process and make it so easy for a child to be able to access that it really became a recipe. It became a beautiful formula for agency. So we call it the superhero formula, for nothing else. So I think children are born curious, they're born empathetic. So it was so easy for children to become designers of solutions. So Design for Change really became a simplified methodology of how do you find solutions. So yeah, Design for Change was born out of that.
That's so true. That's so, in a way, built in what you exactly said, the innate need of human nature to explore. That very often the school systems do not encourage it, or they haven't built everything upon that principle. At Sophia, we work with school leaders across the world using a process framework that helps schools operate effectively and sustainably. We look at the school as a whole, as an ecosystem, recognizing 6 major areas of operations: leadership and values, curriculum and learning, student support services, relationships with students and parents, how staff are supported, and the use of infrastructure and technology, as well as financial management in order to improve operations. So for today's discussion, I thought that we will use the excellent work happening in Riverside as a case study for each one of these pillars. So let's start with vision and mission. How did design thinking shape the vision of Riverside? I think you partially answered that question, but I would also like to ask you, how does design thinking approach these areas of school operations as well? Like, is it infiltrated in other parts, or it's only in curricula and pedagogy?
No, actually, the design process, I won't even say design thinking. It's really a process, right? So the design process is like the operating model. So think about it as you download this operating model and everything rests on it. So the design process becomes the way you address any situation at school. So for instance, when you talked about the 6 major areas, everything to be able to serve the idea of student learning, right? What do you want to accomplish? What is your, what we call the best case scenario of student learning? At Riverside, we call it children must graduate with content and character. So we think that both have to be equally important. So when you have a mission like that, you use the design process to be able to design opportunities, timetable, curriculum, assessment, all of it to serve that final goal. So the design process becomes your method to reach your best case scenario. So in each of these, what you call your pillars, Riverside also has 6 pillars, in fact. We have student learning, we have personal professional development of teachers, we have the parent partnership, we have leadership, we have admin, and we have community. So all of these are our ecosystem to ensure that every child graduates believing they can change the world, what we call the I can, right? So when we look at the design process, it becomes an opportunity to ensure that we use it to ensure that the parents are equally involved, that the teachers have the same set of skills, that administrative is servicing and serving the idea, that leadership builds the capacities to make this happen on a daily basis. So when you look at the design process as the operating model, then everything is fueled by that same process. So nothing is done by chance. It is all done by design.
And I bet this gives people, no matter which area of the school they are working at, confidence that they actually serve the vision, the mission, and the strategy of the school.
Yes. And when in doubt, always use the process. So now it has become something of a culture. Our teachers use it. Our students, of course, are constantly using it to do their service projects, their client projects, their ability to solve, assessments. So it's now become part of Riverside's culture to use this as a default. So whenever we start thinking about something, we say, no, we can't start rushing into action. We have to start with empathy. We have to start with co-creation. And only then will the action happen. So it really is a beautiful way for our own checks and balances that we don't rush in to solve the wrong problem. If we don't start with empathy, very often we will solve something that doesn't need a solution. And then we will say, oh my God, see, it doesn't work. So here we are able to be intentional about our solutions. I think that's a beautiful way to look at the work.
I love that. Riverside became very known for learning that connects deeply to real life. To what you said before, I can change the world. I see the problems. I propose solutions. What was one curriculum decision that fundamentally changed how students experienced learning? And because I presume it was a big change, how was it received by teachers, parents, and students who were used to different type of teaching and learning models?
I would say I think the fundamental shift was not even in the curriculum. It was understanding the capacity and potential of children. The one thing we challenged was age. We didn't wait for children to be a certain age. Typically we say, oh, now you're too young. Not now. Maybe when you're 10, maybe when you're 18. So when we challenge that myth of age coming into agency of children, we recognize that maybe a child even of 5 years and 6 years was able to do real world projects. So that idea of age was probably our greatest myth that we challenge. And by doing that, we found that we were able to provide children the ability to do real world projects right off as young as 5 and 6 year olds. So I think for us, that was a big awakening. And that then became the belief in a child. So the moment we challenge the belief that a child of a certain age is capable of projects, it became a beautiful liberation again. So now, right from 4 years of our children at, I would say 4.5, they all have to embark on a project, 2 in a year often, that is real world. It could be designing an audio tour for the city zoo. It could be designing a butterfly park. It could be doing an insect garden. So the idea that children use their agency to look at the world. So it means you're basically blurring the boundary that you have to be in school to make change happen. That's not a good reason to run a school, right? The idea is if you really develop skills and agency, can you be an agent of change in an area that is in life? So when children see that connection between learning and life, then it starts becoming relevant. Then they say, school is relevant for me. Otherwise, when they don't see the relevance of what they're learning to be put in life, then they start getting disenchanted with education. What they're teaching me doesn't matter. It's not part of real world. So as you keep showing them the connection between school and life, the relevance of what you're doing becomes even more engaging for our children. So yes, I think the biggest shift was age, understanding that the child doesn't have to be 18 to make change happen. Today, the child has the capacity to make change happen. That was a big mental shift.
Yes, that is a great perspective and a way to approach it. Let's move on to support services. Beyond teaching and learning, schools undoubtedly need support systems that protect well-being. They nurture creativity and provide counseling to students and their families and teachers very, very often. What is one support service or structure that you created in the school that made a huge difference to students' confidence and well-being beyond teaching and learning in the classroom?
I think, of course, one could always say you have a counseling service. That's fine. That's when there's a need. But I think to timetable time for relationships was the biggest shift. We didn't leave it to chance. Again, every single morning we start with what we call the morning circle, which schools might have. But to intentionally put that time at the beginning of every day, to start with the heart, to notice you, to check in with you, that made the world of a difference. So I remember when I started Riverside, this became the storytelling was something we did very naturally at the beginning of the day. And we would leave it sometimes to chance. Maybe a teacher did it, teacher didn't do it. Then we realized, no, we were getting so many inputs from our parents and children saying, those days when you tell stories, my child loves it. We said, oh my God, it's a no-brainer. We must start with the heart every day. So the idea of timetabling for the heart, and that's what I keep saying, timetabling for the heart, then lets the mind ready for learning. So to put that time intentionally now as part of the daily schedule is, I think, a very powerful way to address well-being. And I think that we've seen that change the basic emotional well-being of children across the years. So yes, I would say timetabling for the well-being. Also having, of course, bubble time and, your extra counseling supports. But that's the additional service. As the default, your day must start with the heart.
That's great. And it's true that if it's not on the timetable, it's open to, it's not going to happen. It's open to volatility and it doesn't give tangible results because everyday lives in the classrooms are demanding and there are urgent things to be done. So if it's not on your timetable, if it's not in your routine, it's very probable that, as a teacher, you will ignore it at times and bring it back and ignore it again and stuff like that. This is an excellent tip that, school leaders can go and incorporate tomorrow. It doesn't need huge processes and permissions and stuff. It's just a minor change at the beginning of the day that makes a huge difference. Let's move on to human resource management. So schools do not transform, in my opinion, unless teachers feel safe, trusted, inspire, and supported. But this is true for the teachers that are in schools for years and they are incorporated in the culture, they have adopted, they have developed it. Let's go to one step earlier. What is one hiring decision or one hiring criterion you are using in the school that you feel is more valuable and that it will make sure in a way that the person you are choosing will be a good fit for the culture of the school?
I don't think there's an easy answer to that because no matter what you do, it is still left to people's personality and well-being when they join. But I think one thing we introduced probably a couple of years ago was not just the meeting at the time of hiring, but we encourage our candidates to come in and spend a day with us, to observe the school in action, observe a classroom in action and then come and do a demo of their classroom. Because I think it's only fair to get them set up for success rather than them coming in without prior understanding of what your school culture is and then being told, oh, your demo did not go well. Oh, I don't think you'll be a right fit. So I think for us to add that idea of the immersion before they're asked to give their demonstration of practice was a big yes and no, because very often sometimes people say, oh my God, I didn't sign up for so much work. So they would not even come in for the demo. But when they do come to the second step, they're more confident that this is the place they want to be. So I think that simple act of having them come in, observe a class, spend a day at the school, and then come in the next day prepared to say, this is the kind of culture I want to be part of, gives them a better reason to join. So I think that shift was, I believe, a good one that we did.
Kiran, you know what I love in the culture of the school as you describe it now, the past 20 minutes we are speaking, it is you have built fairness at the heart of operations. You set people for success. And this is so touching to me because I feel that this requires a level of empathy that is essential for teachers, is essential for educators, is essential for educational environments. So I think that this is something that we can take out of this conversation, that empathy is not only the way we speak to our students, it's culture and it needs to be everywhere. And it's okay if we take an extra step and ask for a little bit of more effort if it is to show empathy and set everybody set for success from the very beginning. So I love this methodology and I hope that people see the value behind it. I would love to be in a school because, as a teacher who have been in these demo classes, you never know what you will see. You never know the room, the space, the chairs. Will I be able to have the students move? Do they have a projector? Do they have a smart board? What does the room look like? And this creates a little bit of insecurity, unnecessary.
Yeah, because finally, you want people to succeed, right? You want people to be their best. And we keep telling them. And also in choice of what you want to do as a demo, we say choose your what you will show up best with, right? So we actually really set it up in a manner that you would want to do the best you can. So I would say that was a game changer for us to introduce the idea of the immersion before the demonstration.
That's great. Infrastructure, ICT, in era that everything changes again. We are in the middle of another technological revolution. Physical spaces and technology in schools, they shape behavior very often. What is one design in terms of infrastructure choices that supports students' agency in the school?
Oh, one beautiful one. And this came actually only from the design of I started a school in my house, right? And so it really became a space that gave me lessons of how finally the school building would be designed. And the one thing we did is we removed any kind of principal's office or a staff room. So we just, by removing and removing these physical barriers, the mental barriers were also removed. So we don't have a principal's office. We don't have a staff room. We say the entire school is a learning space. So for instance, for me or even Deepa, who you have met, there is no room we sit in. We can sit anywhere. I can sit under a tree and have my office. So the idea of removing these physical borders was such a game changer again. Again, what did it mean? It meant that you were visible and therefore you were approachable. And that visibility and approachability essentially shifts the culture in the school. Suddenly children are safer because there's an adult sitting at all different places. So I think the idea of encouraging visibility, encouraging approachability meant transparency was the culture. So I would encourage a lot of schools to say, or if you do have an office, put your table into the corridors of the office and run it for a week and just see the magic that starts happening in your school. So yes, infrastructure, we just removed those borders and it became a beautiful, beautiful lesson of transparency and trust.
Brilliant. And what about classrooms? Are they also free in terms of structure of the desks and orientation and stuff like that?
Yeah, in fact, flexibility is a very key component. So your desk can be reoriented in any flexible configuration as you want. The school is luckily set up with a lot of outdoor and indoor space. So now, because it's winter at Riverside, you will never see a classroom in the class. I mean, the kids are all over the place. They're sitting under the swings. They're sitting under the trees. It's such a beautiful invitation to understand that learning is really about dissolving these borders between your class and school and then school and life. So I think these decisions were, I mean, for me, I think these would have been no-brainers. It was right off the bat because we didn't have a formal structure because my home actually became the first introduction of a house. And we saw the beauty of having the bathroom in every class because that was how my bedroom would have been. And we said, what a marvelous idea. These bathrooms, especially for younger children, should be in the class so they don't have to keep moving around, right? And by virtue of these little experiences I had in the home, we translated a lot of that warmth and that intimacy for the early years building. Then the middle years building, I remember our children became the clients for the architect and they kind of said, no, we're now big children. We must go out of the class. So that became the design. And for my oldest kids, of course, I mean, they're like everywhere. So I think these little moments were important. I'll tell you another very important design decision we made was the placement and the position of the bathroom specifically in the area. If you go to most schools, the bathrooms are often tucked away in the corners of the school buildings. And so much of the design for change solutions we get from around the world is that bullying happens in these places, which are tucked away in the corners. So for us, it was imperative that they are most visible. They're in the center of the common spaces. So there's always that visibility. And therefore, it has meant that we've never had incidents of bullying that would be how it often happens in most schools. So again, I think the idea of safety and especially emotional safety for our children was a very key component of the design decisions we were making, even for infrastructure. It's not just the physical safety, it's the emotional safety of our children. So I would say not having staff rooms, not having a principal's cabbing, having a lot of light and visibility. We have a lot of transparency even between the rooms. So the fact that we can see and be seen was a beautiful reason for the emotional safety.
I love that. And I really love the tip with the bathrooms and the toilets being closer to, and it gives this sense of home as well, that I have everything I need. All my basic needs are covered in that geographic little area that I feel safe at. I love it. That's another excellent tip. One last comment I want to make and to ask of your best practices in that, because I see that you do that very, very well. I sense that you are very good, and your team, I guess, in reflection, in observation and reflection on seeing what is happening and translating that into action. How do you, as a leader, how do you cultivate that to yourself and to the team? Where do you find the time to do that? What is the appropriate time in a school year to do that?
Oh, it is done weekly, monthly, per term, annually. So I think it can't be done. There has to be a certain dosage of reflection. Only then it becomes actionable practices. Otherwise, you leave so much time between observing something and action that it often gets lost. So for us, we have lots of checks and balances as smaller cohorts between maybe my early years, my middle years, and my senior years, right? They have timetable times twice in a week where whenever they meet as a team, they always start with what happened last week, what was our previous. So by default, the what we would say the template for even running a particular meeting would always start with a reflective exercise. So by default, it is part of that. Then every month as a whole school, we meet and we call it the month end celebration. And that really is about coming together as a team and saying, even celebrating your biggest failures, or what was the academic thing, or what did we learn with parents. So the idea is coming together as a team and recognizing that. Every week, my leaders do something called the learning walk. And the learning walk is an opportunity to check in whether our culture of learning and our values are still alive. And it's a beautiful learning walk. And I would encourage anybody who's hearing, if they want to reach out, we can tell you the difference between a principal's walk and a learning walk. There's a distinction there. But the learning walk is a marvelous way to do the checks and balances every week, to correct course. If at all you found that, for instance, you walked into a class and you asked the children what was happening, and if at all they ever said, oh, I don't know, the teacher told me to do this, immediately your red flag should go up, right? And the learning walk then allows you to then immediately correct course. So it could be around space, it could be around learning, it could be movement. So I think we practice that in. At the start of every year, we bring the parents, the children, and the team together to do a reflection of the last year. What went well, even for the parents, even for the community. And then we relook at what was going good. We continue. If anything has to change, we will consider those. So I think reflection becomes such an important part to say learning can only be elevated if reflection happens. So we've actually put that into the timetabling by design. Again, we don't leave it to chance. It is really by design.
Everything starts and ends there. And this is an important lesson for the audience, for school leaders around the world, that if you haven't planned it, if it's not in the schedule, if it's not in the methodology, it won't happen organically and naturally. Because these are hard things, to be honest.
No, because in a school, there is always these urgent things that come up, right? You're always firefighting. And you can always rationalize not meeting by saying, but I had that very important thing last week. Oh, but I had this. And that is when schools miss the bar. That's when cultures die, right? Cultures is a subset of the daily practices and the rigor of that you have to put in. And I've seen even in the best of teams, there will always be something. Oh, but we had the performance happening, so we didn't meet. Oh, so we said, no, irrespective, you will meet. I don't care if it is on Zoom for 5 minutes, but yes, you must make that habit happen. Only then you're able to build culture. Habits build culture. It is not that good intention alone. It is in those actions and those habits that culture gets created.
Exactly. Actions breed habits. That's the motto we can all live with. Kiran, I can't thank you enough for opening the doors to your inspirational school. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure.
Always. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we finally got to make this.
Yes, that was great. So have a good afternoon, evening. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for being in another episode of EdTransformed. Thank you very much for listening to this one. See you in the next one. Bye.